Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Flags in a Gym, a podcast dedicated to all things color guard. My name is Eric. I'm your host and resident color guard nerd. And for today's episode, we're recapping and reviewing the Salem Regional from this past weekend. We're going to be talking about what everyone's doing, how everyone's doing, and kind of give my general opinions. So sit back, relax, and let's talk some color guard. Okay, before we get started, I do want to just make a quick mention. I apologize if this audio sounds a little weird this time around. I recorded this episode, and then when I went to go edit it and I was doing the playback, some chunks just for some reason didn't come out very well, and it was just really strange. So I had to go back and re-record some chunks. So if it sounds a little Frankenstein-y at times, I apologize. I had to kind of rush to get this out. So if I go up and down, that's kind of why. So sorry about that. Before we get into talking about each group, let's just, kind of do a quick overview of the regional. It is early in the season. It is our second regional weekend. So people are not clean. There are drops. We expect that. Shows are not finalized. I mean, everybody was pretty much done. Like they had a full show on the floor, but obviously their final ideas aren't on the floor yet, and that's fine. We're not really going to be looking at that. We're taking that into understanding. Also, the regional was a little bit weird because as finals started, snow started to move into the area. And about a third of the way through finals, the announcers started making announcements about how they were going to change finals retreat because they wanted to get people home safely, which I completely understand. I was honestly a little worried they were going to cancel finals like halfway through by the way the announcements were coming. So, retreat was weird. And then, guards were leaving after they performed. So the crowd wasn't as big. But thankfully, all the shows went off without a hitch. And we got to see everybody give a great performance. I do want to give a little bit of a disclaimer. This is my first reaction and recap episode. And you all are going to learn real quick that I do not hold back. My teaching philosophy has always been not to sugarcoat anything and that you don't get better by being told you're fabulous all the time. And I know these guards are not going to listen to my commentary. I'm like, oh, Eric thinks I should do this, so I'm going to do this. I understand that. But there's no point of me doing this if I'm just going to say they were great. They were great. They were great. They were great. It's like, okay, well then why are you doing this? So we're going to constructively talk about these programs. It's okay to not like programs. And it's okay to voice your opinion about that as long as you do it respectfully. Like, we are not sending hate to anybody, no hate to the performers, no hate to the staff. Sometimes you don't like a show, and that's okay. Also, I like to make little playful jokes and reads at times. So remember, this is all in good fun. We're all talking color guard. I hear you guys in the stands. You guys make these reads all the time too. So don't judge me, okay? A couple things I noticed just in general about the regional. I am so tired of guards writing their shows around one person. I get it when you have a performer that they went and did drum corps over the summer and they just completely outclassed the rest of your guard. I get it. It happens. When you have that superstar, what do? You want to challenge them. You want them to feel valid in the show, but you can't leave everybody else behind. So you kind of feature them. But I'm just so tired of these shows where it's just one performer doing everything. All the moments go to them. And, I feel like it's a negative for a few reasons. One, design-wise, it gets stale very quickly. I realize about a third of the way into the show, all the moments are going to go to this person, right? Oh, we're doing another ripple into the superstar, right? Ripple, ripple, ripple 6, right? Ripple, 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 double turn. Ripple, 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 illusion toss. It really just kind of handicaps your design because all your moments happen the same way. And it's like, okay, I know what's coming. It also highlights the gap in your unit's skill set. You have this amazing performer, give them a moment to shine. Don't write your whole show around them because it just shows me and everybody else how much better they are than the rest of the guard. And it kind of highlights the weakness of the rest of the guard. And that's really not fair to them. And then most importantly, if your featured performer has a bad run, it kills the entire show because they are all your moments, right? If you have just a regular member just have a bad run, okay, you might catch them out of the corner of your eye. Oh, she dropped again. Oh, she's having a bad run. But it doesn't ruin the whole experience. Whereas if your superstar, oh, they dropped that one. Oh, they dropped that one. Oh, they dropped that one. Oh, they almost fell. Oh, they dropped, like that's your whole show. Like every single moment flops because of them. So To the instructors out there, try to find a way to incorporate your superstars without writing your whole show around them. What would you do if they broke their leg? Or if they caught COVID and couldn't march for 2 weeks or got a concussion and were ruled out? Like, it's very dangerous to write programs around a singular performer without somebody that could back them up. And let's be real, in these shows, there's nobody that can back them up. That's why the shows are written this way. But let's talk about the guards. We're going to go quickly through the beginning classes and we'll talk more about the open and world guards because those are the ones we're going to see at Dayton. A lot of these A guards we're probably not going to see. So we'll kind of go through them quickly. Regional A first. Regional A. Regional A is for beginners. WGI this year changed the class descriptors on the judges' sheets because A class used to always be notated as the beginning class, and it has now been moved to the intermediate class. And there's a video on YouTube that WGI put out themselves about this. I believe it's Dale Powers is talking about it. Go watch it. Watch all the stuff they put out because it's so informative. It might be a little over your head at times because it is about like how they continually educate and test the judges and whatnot. So sometimes, your head can kind of explode from all the words they're throwing around, but the point of the videos are still there. And, Regional A is a beginning class, and Wakefield High School won Regional A, and they were throwing 5s and 6s and turnarounds, and they had a soloist that threw a 7 with a double turn. He turned one standing, then rolled into the ground and caught it. And I'm like, this is not Regional A. I'm sorry. And I know Regional A is not just equipment. You can't just look at the equipment book and say, this is the class you should be in. There's design things to look at and whatnot. But when you clearly have 4 or 5 kids that march drum corps over the summer and you're letting them have all these featured moments, I mean, they threw like an ensemble rifle 5 that was tight and caught well. And yes, it's Boston. It's the Boston area. We know how they are equipment-wise. But still, this is Regional A. Shenendehowa Regional A felt like the only true Regional A guard that made finals. They came in second. They were doing what you expect. They were throwing triples and they were doing an advanced basics and had decent movement. Like it looked like an actual Regional A show. I hope WGI steps in and does something about the guards in Regional A that don't belong there. I know they don't compete at Dayton, but really Wakefield should have been an A class to me. Moving on to Scholastic A, we're going to move quickly. We're going to go in reverse order, so we'll start with the 8th place and move up. Naugatuck High School did a Nosferatu show with some gravestones and they had some LeMay flags, and we're going to move quickly here. It was a fine show. West Orange High School did a rock, paper, scissors show. And it seemed like a cool concept, but this was one that was kind of written around a singular performer. They had flags made out of actual paper, which was cool. Dennis Yarmouth was next, did a kaleidoscope show, and I was really sad that it wasn't the Chapel Roan kaleidoscope song. I was like, ooh, they're going to do... No, they're not. And it was fine. Bright colors, just like you would expect in a kaleidoscope. Everett High School was next. They did The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe. And by the way, that seems to be the theme this year. Last year, we had 5 Lizzie Borden shows. I've seen 4 Edgar Allan Poe shows so far this year. Yeah, everybody's going Poe for some reason. 4th place was Mansfield High School. They were cute. They had a little pier painted on their floor and on it looked like a lake. And then, the song was about a sailboat and, they used the silks like sails and everything. It was a cute, A-class show. It was fine. Salem High School was 3rd, and they did a show all about following in footsteps and finding your own way. And they had these tarps that rolled out that had footprints on them. And they used a big mix of songs, kind of about finding your way and whatnot. Southington High School was 2nd, and I did not get the show title because it's 3 characters, 3 people, but they sound kind of like ancient Greek kind of names. And it was interesting. They had 3 rectangles on the floor, kind of painted on a black tarp that they were they almost looked like electric bronze colored, with electric lines. One was on a diagonal, one was right in the center, and then the other was on the other side. And they kind of broke the show into 3 movements and featured each movement inside one of the rectangles. So that was cool. It was a decent show. I liked it. Victor High School won. They did When We Were Young by Adele. And it was all about childhood photos. They had a giant photo frame in the middle of the floor that you could walk through. And this was very good. This could do well at Dayton. If they keep it up, I think it's written well. It's very A-class appropriate. has some really good moments, and they bring out these flags at the end that have all of their childhood pictures on them in like a sepia kind of burnt sienna feel. It's a very nice show, and I hope they go to Dayton because I really liked it. Okay, let's talk about Independent A. There were 6 units, and sixth place was Third Legend from Quebec. Their show was called A Midnight Caravan, and it was fine. You know, they're clearly the baby guard to the open guard that performed later. And their soundtrack is an accordion style circus music. If anybody listened to the Christina Aguilera album back in the day, Back to Basics, if you remember that intro song she had, that's very much that vibe. And it was fine. There was really nothing of note to it. I mean, I'm glad they had a great experience and got to perform at a regional, but I mean, there really wasn't much notable about it. Fifth place was Gates Chili A, because they now have an open and an A guard. And their show was called Ready or Not. And they had these props that moved, and it was about hiding and, can you see me? I'm going to come get you, that kind of thing. And it was fine. I mean, it had a mix of songs. They used Ready or Not by the Fugees, and it had a remix version of it. And then they had hints of Somebody's Watching Me by Rockwell. And yeah, totally fine A class show. Next was University of Connecticut, and I didn't get their show title, but they had chairs all over the floor, and it was decent. I liked the idea, and I really feel they had a lot of potential. The weird thing about their show was it was a lot of starting and stopping. Their phrases were super short, and they would get to like count 13 of a phrase, and then everything would just kind of stop, waiting for count one of the next set. So they had ideas and they had moments, but they really need to look at connecting them together. And I know the judges probably told them this because it was the first thing I noticed. I'm like, it's a lot of starting and stopping, almost like with somebody learning to drive a car where you have that lugging kind of motion where you're like, vroom, vroom. It felt that way watching the guard spin. Third place was Batavia, and they did The Space Between Us by Adele. And also, this one was fine as well. They are very clearly strongest on gun. That's when they truly shined, shined, whatever the word is. They need some time to refine. It was written a little weird. Like it was very flat. Like it was all one speed all the way through. It needs some speed changes to really kind of give it a little more life, but they were fine. Next we had St. Anne's. They were second place, very close second place. They were a finalist last year in Dayton, and their show is all around the words I think. So they have big props on the floor that stand up to spell out the words I think, and their soundtrack is clunky, but it's a mix of songs that all have "I think" in the lyrics. So they have like "Think" by Aretha Franklin, Rocket Man, "I think it's gonna be a long, long time," and then they do Tiffany's "I think we're alone now." What a Wonderful World. There's more. I mean, there's just a bunch of "I think." And like I said, the soundtrack's a little clunky. When you see the world programs come out and they have these elaborate soundtracks and they just flow really beautifully together, that doesn't really happen here. This feels like it's very choppily edited. So I hope they can smooth that out. Obviously, the kids are insanely talented. I mean, it's St. Anne's. Let's review. We know these kids know how to spin. They're going to continue to clean and get better and, hopefully make another push at finals again this year. And then first place, by only a couple tenths, was Sonar from Quebec, and their show was called On Thin Ice. And they had just, kind of a instrumental music that had ice cracking noises over it. And I really feel like this one has the most potential. They need to clean. They were droppy, they were dirty, but when you just kind of look at the overall picture, the design, and kind of what's there, like it is a good, solid A class show. I could easily see this making finals at Dayton. They're going to need to clean it up and get more consistent, but I really enjoyed this one. So we'll keep tabs on these guards and see how they do, and hopefully we'll see them in finals. Let's move on to Scholastic Open. And I'm going to be honest, I was really disappointed overall with Scholastic Open outside of Shenendehowa. I was really excited, especially to see Arlington. But let's start with Dartmouth. Dartmouth is doing a City of Oz show, very green and gold. I think they have music from The Wiz, and then they have some RuPaul mixed in there, and then there's Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and they have these huge props that go all the way across the back of the floor. And it's okay. I mean, they lost their superstar. He graduated out and is marching in SAC this year, and he's a featured performer and absolutely killing it there. But I think you're starting to see the effects of having a superstar kind of carry the guard. And I hate to say that because it sounds mean, but they made finals last year, and then now they don't have him, and you see what's kind of remaining. And I think they're rebuilding. They may need to move down to A next year. They can't this year because they made finals and open last year, but I don't know how much longer they're going to last in open. I just don't think they have the chops for it. I still love the kids. Remember, no hate. I'm just being honest. Third place was Bethel High School with a show called Night Watch. And the camera's up kind of high. The bleachers weren't super high in this show, but you don't get the super up close view. But I think they were supposed to be bats or maybe gargoyles. And it was a decent show. They had notable tricks. They did seem like a good step up from Dartmouth equipment wise. The show's kind of locked design wise in how they use the props and everything. I honestly thought they were better than Arlington, and I would have put them over them. I mean, they were super close anyway, but I would have put Bethel over Arlington. Arlington High School was second, and they're doing a Marilyn Monroe show. And like I said, I was disappointed in this one. I was super excited to see them because they are the reigning Scholastic A champions, and now they're in open class. And the show just looks like last year's show. I feel like it's a recycle of last year's show on the floor, and that's really kind of disappointing. Production design, they're in the red sequin dress or a very close version of, Marilyn's red sequin dress from Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. And they have a huge movie reel on the floor that rotates, like the old film reels that you would put in like a movie projector. And then they have some old school cameras that are on wheels along the front of the floor, but they don't really use them. The cameras just kind of sit there. Like I noticed they pulled them on the floor and then they pulled them back off for like 10 seconds. And same with the rotating stage. They don't really use it a whole lot. And they feel very stiff. It's very odd watching this show. I don't know if they're corseted or what, or if it's just kind of the essence, the vibe they want to give off. But it feels like the guard can't really move from the waist up. It was so strange to watch. I'm like, they need to loosen up. They look so stiff. And I'm like, are they constricted by their uniforms? I don't know. They have beautiful flags. They have a beautiful blue flag that has Marilyn Monroe's likeness digitally printed on it. And they have voiceovers over the music. And the music is a cover of a cover. It is a woman's cover of Johnny Cash's cover of Nine Inch Nails' song Hurt. So if you remember, Blessed Sack years ago did Johnny Cash's version of Hurt, and this is a woman's version of it. And the music is just very slow, very stodgy, and I feel like you're just kind of like wanting the show to do something. You're like, come on, like you feel like you're trying to run through a pool of water, if that makes sense. Like there's this push back against you where you can't. And like I said, I was really disappointed just because I was so excited to see them. And then I was just like, oh, it looks like last year's show. The uniform is the same silhouette, just a different color. They move the same. The equipment work kind of looks the same. Like it really just does look like a repaste. And like I said, I'm sorry. I hate to be so negative, but this was the one I was really excited to see. And then it was just kind of a big letdown for me. They're going to need to beef up their show to keep up in Scholastic Open. I don't think they have the vocabulary. And somebody, please, for the love of God, get into their technique block and teach these rifles to push with their right hand. I was watching, and there were at least 3 or 4 of their weapons that they push down with their right, and it stops at their rib cage and just hangs there. And they're trying to get these rifle tosses around on left hand alone, and they can't do it. Really, really, come on, guys. You got to push with that right hand. Instructors, you know what I'm talking about. First place in Scholastic Open was Shenendehowa, and this was nice. This was a nice step up. This felt like an actual Scholastic Open show, and you can tell by looking at the scores. I mean, they almost 7-pointed second place. Their show is all about 911 dispatchers and how they're heroes. They use the song "We Could Be Heroes," and they overlay it with actual 911 tape recordings, which is cool. And they have desks that they move around, and they're all wearing, like the headsets like you would have when you're calling into a call center. You notice the change from them in movement and equipment. Like they came out and you're like, whoa, this is a step up. Like this is an open guard. They have a lot of good moments, and I know they'll continue to tweak and even get better. I'm looking forward to seeing this later in the year. Shindaho has always been rock solid and open. They moved up to world for a couple of years, and then they came back down to open and still continue to make finals and be steady in the class. So I know they're going to put another quality product. Let's move on to independent open. Blessed Sack was third, and their show is Beautiful Things. And it started out with an instrumental piece that moved into the Benson Boone song, Beautiful Things. I do think this is a better year for them than last year. The floor is kind of like an artwork. I don't know the artist, but it looks very New York street art. And they have some props staged around the floor. And they have this nice, cool aqua blue flag. And it's a nice show. I mean, it's not going to make finals. It's not, unfortunately, but it's a cute show, and I like it better than last year. So it's good for them. Second place was Gates Chile Open, and I'm not going to lie, this show surprised me. They were fourth place last year in Independent A and got bumped to Open. I was shocked when they started spinning on the floor. The equipment work, like they understood the assignment. They're like, we're an open class now. We cannot play around. And they have truly upped their game. They're doing a typewriter show. It's all about a stenographer and how she types up her letters and messages for Mr. Green, very 60s secretary. They have desks on the floor that they wheel around in rolling chairs. And a lot of the soundtrack is the clicking of typewriters and the dinging of typewriters. And the clicking of the music kind of gets into like a nice little beat, and it's upbeat, and then it slows down, then it's upbeat. I really liked this show. And I expect this to be in finals at Dayton. I do. I think they'll make finals if they keep going. They have a really good foundation. They were close behind Third Legend, who won. But I was shocked. I was like, this is really good, because sometimes, guards struggle with the change to open class. But I was wildly impressed. I'm like, they knew what to do. They're not playing around. And as I mentioned, the winner was Third Legend. They're doing a show. I'm going to mispronounce this. Even the announcer struggled with it. I don't know what it means because I don't know how to spell it. I'm recording this after the fact, and I'm going to splice it in. The song they're using is Ne Me Quitte Pas by Celine Dion, and it means don't leave me. And it makes so much more sense when you watch the show that the music is saying, don't leave me. Please don't leave me. But this was an excellent show. I loved this one. It was emotional. It was breathy, had great equipment, great movement. They have these cool red seesaw props that they use a lot. They're meant for like one person. Like you could put one foot on each end and go back and forth. And they'll lean one way and toss, and then they'll lean the other way and catch. And they do this with flag. They do it with weapon. They use them on body. They really capitalize well on the highs and lows of the soundtrack, and it flows beautifully from one moment to another. You almost even miss the props moving around, which is exactly how it should happen. And my favorite moment of the whole show, it sounds so stupid, but there's this point in the song where Celine just goes, and this flag comes flying off from the side of the floor to a performer in the middle of the floor. And the silk just opens up on the breath. It's so well done. It's exquisite. I think this could do really well at Dayton. I believe they are going. They went last year. They didn't make finals. They were like 17th or something like that. I think this could do really well if they keep plugging along because I really dug this show. And yeah, they're doing a lot with it. I love it. Let's move on to the guards that everybody wants to talk about, the independent world. And we had two guards here. Second place was Blessed Sacrament with their show If It Ain't Baroque. Not broke, but Baroque, like old Baroque music, the Baroque era. And, Sax shows have not always been my favorite. I'm not crazy about the new style they have, in the past couple years, but I love this show. It's got tons of attitude, it's got style, and it's like a jazzy, sultry take on Baroque piano music. I really dig it. They whip out these pink fans in the middle of the show, and it is amazing. I love it. And they distract the audience with a solo saber, and they toss, and as soon as they catch all the entire rest of the guard snaps open this pink plastic flag. Like I'm pretty sure it sounds like a plasticky vinyl material because it's shiny and it makes a good rip sound. I love it. I will say the beginning of the show is odd. They are just standing on the corner of the floor. Half of them have rifles, and they're staring at the audience, and the music starts. And it's this Baroque piano that's going really fast, really, really running like and nothing's happening. And nothing happens for I timed it 21 seconds. They just stand there. And if they were looking down at the ground or they weren't facing the audience, I would feel like it's intended, but they are just point blank staring down the audience. I'm like, is this intended? So I don't know if they're going to have something to do here because all of a sudden they start turning their heads to the music and then they start spinning. So I think there might be something to come there. If not, I don't know, but it almost veers on the point of being awkward. You're like, okay, like you're almost wondering, like, oh, is the wrong music playing? Is that why they're not spinning? Like, why aren't they starting? Why aren't they doing anything? They have a nice, bright, mostly orange floor. It's got a blue and yellow strip across the front, and they're in black lace uniforms, long sleeve with shorts, and they have little black socks or something on. I'm assuming they're like socks because they slide around on them kind of on purpose. Finals was a better run for them. They're still droppy, but it is world class and it's SAC, and we know what they like to do on the floor. They don't mess around when it comes to equipment, especially their weapons. So them being droppy, no shock there. My favorite moment besides the pink fans was there's a saber line toss near the end of the show. It's like a saber six, and there's like 20 of them that throw it, and they catch it going into the splits, but it's not like a shablam splits. It's one of those slow splits. So they catch it and then they keep oozing to the floor, and it is so cool. I love it so much. It is such a cool moment. That's going to be hot. Dayton's going to go crazy for that. I will say, and this is kind of like a SAC tradition, which is kind of one of my pet peeves with them, is the flag line feels like an afterthought. They're just kind of there. They don't really feature them. The work's not that crazy, but then you look at the weapon line, you're like, wow, they're doing crazy stuff on the weapon side. They have these hot pink flags that mirror the same color of the fans. And I wish they would give their flag line more, especially when you compare them to Fusion, who is next, who really gives their flag line a lot of love. So that makes me sad because, as I've said before, flag is my favorite piece of equipment. I love a flag line moment. I love a flag feature. And I just wish, give them a moment, give them a nice moment. I do think they could do a little more in the fan section. If you remember last year's show where they pulled out the pink scarves out of their pockets and they kind of danced around with them, it's very much like that, but it just, and they use it as part of their body feature, but I feel like you could do a little more with it. So season's still early. They'll probably tweak things around, but the fans are super cool. I really do like this show. And, people that know me know I'm not the biggest Blessed Sack fan at times. Obviously I respect their work and, them as a unit and everything they do. It's just sometimes I'm just like, it was fine. It's okay. I'm just not moved by it. I was moved by this. I was like, I really dig this. And I can't wait to see this live at Bethlehem. First place, last guard of the night was Fusion. And their show is called As Things Become, and they have B/com. I'm going to be real with you. I don't know what the concept is. I like the show. I don't fully understand the story. But I'm also one of those people, like, you need to hit me over the head with a hammer to understand show concepts sometimes. I can pick up on little nuances and little things and, how something relates to a soundtrack. But when you get into world class and you get these abstract ideas, sometimes I'm just like, I don't get it. Like, I watched Avon last year. Love the show. My absolute favorite of the season. It's beautiful. I never got that they were supposed to be like some, traveling girl that was in a hostel or something like that. And I found a member that had explained what their show was. And I was like, that's what that was about. I just thought it was a beautiful color guard show. Like, I didn't need a story. It was just amazing. But that's why they had like the blankets and the pillows and the beds. Like, that's why that was there. Which honestly I didn't care about because the show was so good. But Fusion is in there in bright 80s color unis and stripes of all varieties. The uniforms are very chaotic. Like the left breast will be one color and the right breast will be one. And then the one pant leg is another color. And then the other pant leg is another. And they're in shorts and tanks and crop tops and skirts and dresses. So it's very much all that. The music gave an 80s rock electronica vibe at parts. And then there's other parts where they have like a Siri-esque voice, like Siri on your phone. that glitches, and they have this big black bar prop. So I call it a bar. It's meant to symbolize like a bar because there's like little black platforms on wheels, but they connect them all during setup. So it's one giant prop that literally goes from the back of the floor to the front. And then they push it across the floor left to right throughout the show. I don't know what that's supposed to represent, but they push it across the stage and they use it wonderfully. They're tossing over it and then rolling over it under the toss. They're hopping up on it. They spin on it. They dance on it. Once again, great prop work. And, it starts on the left side of the floor. And by the end of the show, it ends on the right side of the floor where they end up. Once again, I don't get the story. Hopefully I run into somebody from Fusion along the way and they can explain it to me. Explain it to my stupid brain because I love it. They open up the show, they come running off the edge of the floor and then they all run to their equipment in the middle of the floor and then the music hits and it's just an explosion of black and yellow flags and like a ensemble weapon 6 or 7 or something. And it's just, wham, it just hits you. The biggest surprise I will say about Fusion was how clean they were. And I'm honestly worried that may hurt them down the line. They were very clean for being second regional weekend. Last year, I talked about it last year. I think the reason that they truly won is because they were so clean. You watch finals last year, fourth, third, and second kind of had some rough runs. They weren't, and then Fusion comes out and they just nailed it. They had like one drop, like in the beginning of the show that you hear, but you can't even see it. Like I know it's a rifle that hits the ground, but I could never figure out who it was. But the rest of the show is just like clean. And they're very much like that. It's a show kind of like last year's. It's a different vibe, different thing, but it has the same kind of essence. But I do think they might need to beef some things up throughout the season just because I do think, especially with Pride of Cincinnati being out this year, and we know how innovative they are and how they are, they're so innovative design wise and equipment wise. I think they could really challenge Fusion. I do think Fusion will still continue to be up at the top, maybe metal. I haven't seen anybody else yet, so I can't, deem them anything. But being a point ahead of SAC this early in the season does kind of give you a good gauge of where they are because we know SAC's going to be at the top. And honestly, I love that show and I hope it's at the top. As I said, they move the bar across the floor throughout the show and they have different features on opposite sides of the bar. Like, I wonder if that's supposed to mean something. They have this killer orange flag feature on the left side of the bar, and then it's in a pretty tight space, and they have probably like 15, maybe 18 flags over there spinning, and it is already like finals clean. Like, I'm like, y'all, like, this is clean. This is crazy. And thank you for featuring your flags. And they get like a nice like 30 to 40-second moment over there. Like, it's like, look at them, there's some body and stuff happening on the other side of the floor, but you are meant to look at the flags, and they give them this nice moment. And then they start peeling them to the other side of the floor. And in a wave, they'll do this cool, like, one-handed flick toss. And then they'll sit roll over the prop and catch. And then, they're tossing one-handed 45s that go sky high. And then they're jumping over the prop and catching them. Really cool. And then they have an iridescent flag feature as the bar pushes across the floor, kind of like for like their ballad kind of soft moment. And it's a really pretty flag. It's like a pinky orange purple iridescent. Really cool. I like the show. The music I like. It has very much of a vibe like last year. So if you like last year, you'll probably like this year. And they won. They won by a point. I think these two are going to go back and forth all season. I don't know how often they're going to see each other because they're in different circuits. I know they'll both be at Bethlehem, so it'll be really interesting to see what happens there, because they have 5 weeks to clean up and get beefed up and do whatever they need to do to get ready for that regional. So that's kind of what everybody's doing. So shorter episode today. We'll be back next week with another recap because Indy Regional is this weekend, and we're going to have a lot to talk about that one because that is a huge regional. You have so many open guards going out. You have, I think there's 9 independent open guards there, and like 7 of them made finals last year at Dayton. So they're all going to be there. Then you've got the World Guards. You've got Onyx. You've got Pride. You've got Juxtaposition. I believe Elevate is there. And then you've got the Scholastic Worlds. You've got Carmel. You've got Miamisburg, Fishers, Warren Central, Northview. I mean, there's so many guards. So many guards. So We get a short one this week, which is fine because I'm busy. Work is kicking my butt right now. I hope you all are doing okay. Remember, I know the world is crazy right now. I know. Trust me. I know. And I put it on my Instagram stories, and I know many of you responded. Make sure you're taking time to find some joy for yourself. It's okay to take a moment for yourself. You can stay attuned to what's going on in the world, but still find time for your joy. Find something that makes you happy. That's why I'm here. I love color guard. Color guard is my joy. That's why I do this. I love being here, and I love hearing the feedback of you guys saying, I love this episode, or I didn't agree with your opinion on that. And that's okay. I love hearing that too. Find your joy. Go for a walk, play some video games, dance, sing, spin, whatever it is. Find your joy, please. Your mental health is incredibly important. And the only person that will take care of you is you. Sorry, that's my little preachy moment, but it really is important to take care of your mental health, especially in stressful times. So, have a good week. I will be back next week. We're going to keep churning out episodes as these regionals happen. I have more kind of a backlog that I'm going to try to push out. So, you might get 2 episodes in a week. We'll see. But until then, stay safe, stay fabulous, and remember at the end of the day, it's just flags in a gym.